Ever since the first time I walked into this building, I've always felt that there is something here that, without me doing anything, just makes me feel different. The physical environment that we're in affects how we feel, and we have this absolutely amazing opportunity to create something really unique and to build on our history rather than throwing up a new build that doesn't have any roots in history. Mental health, using that phrase is often a bit scary for people, but there's something that we all have, and by mental health I'm talking about how we feel about ourselves, when we feel happy, if we feel sad, if we feel angry, how we cope with just living. And what we don't do very much of is think about how we look after our emotional well-being. The idea is that this isn't going to be a centre where you come because you've got emotional problems. This is going to be a place where everything that goes on has some sort of positive effect on how you feel about yourself. So you might not even think that you're doing anything about your emotional well-being, but you're coming here to do something, and just because you're being provided with a fantastic place to do it, and we can't think of a group that couldn't benefit.
All the children and adults of the community can use it, which is a fantastic thing. It won't be just during school time, it will be for exhibitions. People can come at the weekend, during holidays, so it will be used all through the year.
A long time ago, in the 800s, the Vikings came to East Anglia, to Ipswich.
So I think actually coming out of the school and going into places like this, where there's so much going on and so many links with the past, gives the pupils something that they can actually relate to and something they might be able to pass on both to sort of parents but also to future generations.
I've done a Viking longboat. I've written my name in runes as well and the boat name.
I've drawn a Viking. He's got a helmet without horns and he's holding an axe and a shield.
That bit I think survived, didn't it?
For the children to come along today and see a dig and a site of such historic interest, and to be able to practically put into action what they're learning is invaluable.
Our task is to discover how thickly the burials are spread in the graveyards, and also hopefully to find the Saxon shoreline, which is somewhere in the vicinity but is unknown exactly. So we have to go down as deeply as we can until we find the natural, which is the undisturbed geology. The further in the past you go back, the more shroud burials there were, and only the richer people got the coffins. In Saxon times, certainly, at least more than 3/4 of all burials, Christian burials, were shroud burials. And how you can tell that is because when you excavate the bodies, the shroud burials are all very compact and together with their hands clasped across. This is a disarticulated cranium. If it had the lower jaw, you could call it a skull, because it's just got the top.
It's always good to engage them in their local history. It isn't something that they would ordinarily think about as history. They think of history as being a long, long time ago and in other places perhaps. So it's good to actually bring it back to Ipswich and have them studying their local area.
If it's presented in an exciting package, if they can sort of experience these sort of opportunities, then I think that they do relate to it, and of course this type of thing makes it much more interesting for them.
We're working on this with an organisation called the Church's Conservation Trust, because we think that we can really build on people's being able to feel good about themselves by linking it to the Church Conservation Trust's need to look after their buildings, and we can make sure that our history stays in our community. We're a perfect partnership.
This is one of 12 churches of medieval Ipswich. It was built between 1443 and 1543 when Ipswich was a great port. It represents the wealth of the goods coming into this place at the time, and it was built with one of the finest double hammer beam roofs in Suffolk. The building you see today is largely as it was in the medieval period. There's been very little alteration, but there has been several restorations. By 1870, it was one of the poorest parishes there was, and the building was in a terrible state. Fortunately, due to the efforts of local people, they got some friends together and they raised an awful lot of money to bring the building back into use, to restore it and to make it usable for the late 19th century. So it must have been very devastating in 1898 when basically the church was closed due to it being insanitary. And the reason it was insanitary was because it flooded regularly because of its position near the river, and the river water was flooding here, but also sewage came into the building as well. More money was raised and the building was brought back into use again, but the Victorians used a newfangled product called concrete, which they used in the floor. And we suspect that this concrete floor has actually caused the problems that we have with these stone columns, which you can clearly see are dissolving on us. And this is because the water underneath is being pushed down by the concrete. The water can't evaporate through the concrete floor and it's forced up the columns, which draws out the salts, which means that the building is crumbling. In 1940, a bomb falls through the chancel, smashing the roof, but fortunately doesn't explode. However, in 1942, a bomb falls just to the east of the site, which does explode and blows out, causes considerable structural damage, but also blows out all of the windows, which were full of stained glass, but now you can see are just plain glazing. The church kept open, but it was actually closed in 1948. From 1961 then to about 1973, the building was used as the headquarters of the Boys Brigade. These big concrete reinforcements in the South Aisle were related to that reuse of the building. By 1973, the Boys Brigade moved out of this site and the church passed to the church's Conservation Trust, who've been looking after the site ever since. Now, it may look as if we haven't invested any money in this building, but I can assure you we certainly have. There's been an awful lot of work done to the exterior fabric of the building to make sure that it's structurally sound. But what the building really needs is a use, and this is why Suffolk Mind is such an exciting prospect for the Church's Conservation Trust. We can bring new life back to this building and have a vibrant place for people to be, which is what it always would have been and should be again.
I think we need to own where we come from, and if we don't understand where we come from, we don't know who we are, and then we start to worry about how we feel. We have to make sure that we have some way of looking after the way we feel about ourselves and the way we feel about our lives. So I think there couldn't be a more important time to create somewhere that is going to help all of us, even through the smallest little thing, just to make sure that our lives are all easy to live, or easier than they could be if we weren't looking after our well-being.